And we're live. Welcome, everybody, here to the presidential debate. I am Anthony Irwin, getting my SEO out of the way so that I can put that in the hashtags for this here episode. It is not. It is not. It is
You
the
just got
Lakers.
demonetized for that.
Probably. This is actually the Lakers Lounge. I am Anthony Irwin. That is Harrison Fagan. Or JJ Abrams, depending on the view that we have currently behind him. I feel like I'm watching Star Trek.
This is what Picard would look like in the JJ Abrams verse. Just like lens flares off the bald head every shot.
Exactly. Yeah. We are going to be talking today. Harrison has been on vacation. He took a nice, long, hopefully relaxing Canadian vacation. Went up there, laughed at the every building that had OVO on it, and is now back and basically touched down at the exact same time, I believe, that we got the Jarred Vanderbilt rumor, and then that was followed by the Christian Wood news. That's not a rumor; it is actually news that he is going to be out for the beginning of the season. So, for those of you who were like rooting for the Lakers to do good things this upcoming year, I think we need to send Harrison back to Canada. Like, I think we all need to combine our funds, get him up there north of the wall, and see what the Lakers can do without that voodoo in their backyard.
Well, so the thing is I don't know that I'm allowed that I can go back without paying the parking ticket that I'm gonna have outstanding in Toronto. And that's like $190, which is like at least 100 American, and so it's
what happened? How did you get a parking ticket?
I'm just gonna
not pay
be real. Well, so I didn't read the sign very well. And by very well, I mean I just didn't read it correctly. I read the Sunday hours.
That's my job to not read things, Harrison.
Yeah, well, I was on vacation, so I was like, well, it's time to take a break from reading.
Hey, what's this like? Like, what's Anthony's
I couldn't even blame
like?
the sign being in French because I was in Toronto, so it wasn't like like I couldn't. Yeah, I just it's okay. I just I learned a parking rule. It was an expensive lesson, but yeah, I don't think that I can go back to Canada because I haven't paid it. So, and I don't. I mean, I filed an appeal, but they haven't gotten back to me, and so. It's like, they're going to have to chase me down. I'm not going to voluntarily go back and send them $190,
Yeah.
Hold on. So I think I'm technically on the run from the Canadian government.
Yeah.
Does America have extradition with Canada for $190 parking tickets?
I'm watching I'm rewatching.
That's the debate issue I'm most focused on tonight is who is...
I'm rewatching Narcos right now, and extradition was like a giant piece of the first two seasons of the show. And I'm now an expert. Like I've watched and rewatched the show at this point. I know everything that would go into either keeping you here or getting you out. And again, as we figured out at the beginning of the show, it's in their best interest. It's in the Lakers' best interest that you get extradited, I believe, because again, you touched ground on American soil and immediately broke Christian Wood and Jarred Vanderbilt's bodies. So we're going to be catching up on what Harrison missed during that time. We're going to be talking about the Lakers medical staff, as tricky a conversation as that can become. We're going to talk about whether this is something that is unique to the Lakers, or if it's something that everybody kind of deals with as more and more players have more and more resources at their disposal and thus employ their own doctors and their teams kind of compromise on some stuff there. And then, I think a natural question coming from that part of the conversation is whether or not that even matters. Whether whether if this is a league-wide thing, a sports-wide thing, for me covering the Lakers or me caring about the Lakers, does that actually matter? And then we'll figure out, kind of where things go from here from a basketball perspective and from an organizational standpoint. A quick reminder, please do hit that subscribe button if you guys are watching live on YouTube right now. consider it a bit of a cover fee to hit that like button as you guys are getting situated here, and as Harrison and I entertain you on this debate night. Um, I have it muted. I said this a second ago to you, Harrison. I have it muted. It's actually good television.
I'm just, I mean, I can't believe you counter programmed us with a presidential debate for a second time, I think in like
Twice.
two or three podcasts.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see what major news comes out of this one after, because the last time nominee dropped out that you and I recorded during the debate, and so I'm wondering like what's going to come out of this one. Probably something crazy, but I'm glad on dates like this. There's increasing division that you and I as just two Americans can come together and debate the issues that are most pressingly facing this country, whether or not the Lakers are being honest about their medical statements and sort of how they're handling medical. I think Lakers medical care is one of the more pressing issues of this election, and that I'm going to be thinking about in the months to come. And so I'm just glad that you and I can get together and talk about healthcare.
Hey, you combine red with blue. Guess which color comes out? Purple.
Oh.
We are all united by our purple and gold. So yeah, let's get into this, Harrison. Again, a quick refresh. Obviously, I had been telling you guys on this here show, on this here platform, that I hadn't been hearing the best things about Jarred Vanderbilt's recovery so far this summer. It even got to the extent to where, Raj and I, during our Vando season re-preview thing, I was reluctant to just kind of automatically count him as part of the additions or subtractions to this team and to this talent pool compared to last year. We then come to find out from Mike Bresnahan in a moment that, like, I have to imagine the Lakers were livid with, right? Like, just it's on their channel. It's on the Lakers channel that an entire news cycle just popped up out of nowhere in August. He goes on to say, though, that Jarred Vanderbilt, might be ready for the beginning of the season, probably not going to be ready for the beginning of camp, probably not going to be ready for the beginning of these preseason games. I believe the Lakers play their first preseason game on October 4th. So, whether or not that includes Vando or not. And we figured, okay, well, I guess that Band-Aid is finally kind of ripped off. To be honest, Harrison, I hadn't heard anything about Wood that would, make me be nervous about his recovery or anything like that, or would make me think that a surgery, could be required of him in the not so distant future. However, it does wind up turning out that he does get surgery last week, and it leaves the Lakers a roster that is already kind of talent deficient.
Wait, he got surgery last week, and they just now announced it?
No, what did I? No.
You mean yesterday?
Yesterday was it?
Okay,
my days
you
are
said
all
last week. I was like, wait, what? They just waited a week to
Vando
announce.
Was last week. This was yesterday.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And so, it leaves this Lakers roster, which was already kind of thin, even thinner. So, before we get to like the basketball elements of all this,
well, maybe not literally. I was going to say figuratively, thinner in terms of like depth, but I mean, are the Lakers on average skinnier or larger without two of their skinniest players? Like, I think they actually did get larger on average.
Yeah.
Like this team is
their
thicker.
median bulk.
They're more shallow, but they're thicker now.
Harrison, I want to ask you this though, because like we've been doing this for a while now, right? We can kind of, we literally do play bingo games because at this point in our careers, we can kind of predict how things are going to go. And I didn't want to do like an off-season bingo. We'll do like a preseason bingo or like a training camp bingo the next time you and I get together. But where our ability to do so comes from is that the Lakers are like painfully kind of predictable and
committed to the bit.
Yeah. But like at this point, right? Like, were you even surprised like to find that like things weren't quite on the up and up on the information regarding player injuries during this training camp?
So I don't know if even like on the up and up is the right way to phrase it, because the first thing that I'll say is I'm never surprised by a surprising update on Christian Wood. Like he's, if you've paid
Yeah.
attention to his career at all, if you've paid attention to like his Lakers tenure, you're just every so often there's just going to be a Christian Wood headline that comes out of nowhere, and you're just going to be surprised, and then he's going to have a weird tweet about it where he's like, can't wait to get back to my fans, Christian Wood Nation. I know Raj is not a member, but there's dozens of them.
If you've lost Raj, like for Raj to be like,
yeah. So that's what I'll say. I mean, obviously, I hope he's okay.
It didn't dawn on me that was like something I should have pointed out. Like, yeah.
I hope he's, sarcasm aside, like I hope he's okay. I hope that the surgery was actually, I mean, all these surgeries are always announced as successful. I don't even know what that means. Like, what does successful surgery mean for an NBA player? Like, what do they deem after they do? They're like, well, he lived, success.
He still has his knee.
Like, I'm still, I feel like there's this running bit in NBA media circles of like, I'm waiting for the first update on an unsuccessful surgery.
Yeah.
It's like, well, we tried to get in there, clean up the debris. There's just, just bad bones. It's just too much, I
think that was Brandon Roy was the first bad, like, thing.
No, even then, they're like, oh, surgery was a success, but the patient's knee died. It's... and then
that surgery went well, and then for some reason he started bleeding from his hand. It was weird.
The Vando one, I think the only thing that you can say wasn't on the up and up about that, or it's just weird about that, is and even that this is semi-defensible, is like they quote unquote cleared him for action in the postseason, but then obviously didn't play him. It seemed like it was only in a break glass in case of emergency type thing, or that sort of thing. And then, but before that, the updates on his recovery had never been all that positive, heading into him being sort of surprisingly cleared for playoff action with the team on the verge of getting eliminated. And so the fact that his recovery this summer is taking a long time, considering how weird and how many times his recovery extended during the season, where they were like, oh, well, like he avoided surgery, but then now it's like, well, maybe he's not ready. And it's like, well, wait, did he just need surgery? Or should we have gone, in retrospect, should he have just done that instead of whatever he's trying to let heal and stuff like, I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but it just does seem like this one in particular has been handled very strangely, where it's just like every few months they're like, hey, Vando's not ready yet. It's like, well, why?
Yeah, I
don't know. We just keep looking at it and we're like, yeah, it needs a little more time.
The surgery thing is tough because, demanding people get surgery or whatever is one of those lines that I feel kind of icky about. But like, last
it's just
year,
weird how many different setbacks and delays there's been without a surgery of any kind, where they're just like, yeah, it's just taking a little long. It's like, how many opinions have you had look at this where it keeps taking longer than you thought and it keeps not working?
It's like
and then maybe you need to change a little bit how you're communicating this.
It was it's the doctor from Arrested Development, right?
Yeah.
It's like he looks like he might be dead because he's sleeping. But like the Vando thing, like what frustrates me about it, Harrison, is that like if you think surgery either should have been done or might be done, or that because it hasn't been done, the delay might extend even further. If you think there's even a possibility with Christian Wood that surgery might still be needed at a position that you needed to address heading into this offseason, like even before, I guess, we get to like issues with how the Lakers handle this information to us and between players, apparently, and all of that stuff, like this is all actionable circumstances that I don't think we're that hard to foretell. We're that hard to predict, and yet here we stand with a roster that went basically completely untouched in the summer. Now it's a roster where like they're asking everybody to carry more weight because the front office weren't able to do their jobs. The roster, I still contend, got worse this summer than it was the last time that we saw it. Now I think objectively is worse now than the last
certainly
time
the
we saw
version
it.
that's going to start the season. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think
And
the only argument for they got better this summer was, well, healthy Vando back, healthy Gabe Vincent back. It still seems like you're probably getting the latter. I guess we'll see if we get like a weird update from Brez on that one on the next podcast where he's just like, yeah, team doesn't know where Gabe Vincent is.
it would be funny if like Brez
Like
just
no one's been able to get
the,
in touch with him. Haven't heard from him in weeks.
Brez becomes like bad news Woj.
Yeah, just
the
accidentally
Lakers.
though, just casually, just dropping like the worst news.
Like you guys knew about this already, right? Fuck
Yeah.
again? No.
He's like, man, I thought that was out there.
He's such a nice guy too. Like I love Brez.
One of the nicest men in the industry.
Damn nice. And I can only fathom how like crappy he felt like that day when everybody's like, wait, what? And he's like, wait, what? Like, you guys didn't know?
So I mean, barring an update, but even Gabe Vincent aside, like without sort of this roster being better, sort of hinged on, okay, you have healthy Vando, you have healthy Christian Wood, you have healthy, Gabe. Maybe with a training camp under JJ Redick, they're going to implement a new offense. Like there's an argument that this team could beat last year's team in a scrimmage, if healthy type of thing. But that starts to fall away when you lose Vando, and when I mean the Christian Wood thing for me is like, how much were they really relying on him anyway? Did we really expect Christian Wood to play like a big role on this team? I didn't really.
Well, who's their backup center, Harrison?
It's going to be Hayes, unfortunately. But
now, but like,
yeah,
we were hoping
I always assumed it was going to be Jackson Hayes. Like
above Wood.
Yeah, I just do not like really believe in Christian Wood, and I was not going to believe in sort of JJ believing in Christian Wood, because it just seems like this is a guy that coaches invariably end up not trusting or going away from. This has sort of been the pattern of his career, is that he's a guy who's really talented, and then all of a sudden a couple weeks into the season it's like, wait, why is he not playing more? Oh, he's not even trying to rebound when he doesn't touch the ball. Okay, cool. I just I wasn't counting on Christian Wood playing a big role or being a reliable. Like if you're counting on Christian Wood, something has gone very, very wrong for your team in 2024.
Yes, Harrison.
Yeah.
Things did go really, really wrong. Nothing fucking happened.
I'm going to play devil's advocate then to you, because I heard you make this point to Raj yesterday, about the team. You have actionable intel, and why do you not do anything with it? I mean, again, I don't want to like post bail for the organization. Lord knows I'm as critical of them as anyone, but like, what do you want them to do differently? Like if you go into the summer go into free agency knowing, okay, Vando's probably going to miss the start of the season. We don't know how long, but his recovery is taking longer than we thought. Christian Wood is going to have to get surgery right before training camp. What do they functionally do differently is sort of my question, because I'm not sure that they really have all that much of an ability to get really anything done at a reasonable price right now.
I mean,
or make a move that you and I wouldn't immediately jump on here and be like, they gave up 2 first-round picks for who?
Well, first rounders, like obviously that if you're addressing the absence
what are they flipping to a team? Why does a team want to take an injured Christian Wood or Jackson Hayes or any of these contracts and give the Lakers back a valuable contributor? If you're not doing that. And so
it's not even the valuable contributor part of it, right? Like, you move them and you open up a roster spot so you could sign somebody who isn't a hobbled Christian Wood. It got to the point in the summer where like they couldn't do
we're
anything.
Just taking Christian Wood's salary for like a second round pick or whatever, or like who's doing that at this time of year?
Anybody who wants a second round pick for merely employing Christian Wood for long enough to waive him.
How many rebuilding teams want Christian Wood in the locker room?
No, they would waive him. Like they would.
His contract's guaranteed. Most owners are not signing off on paying $2 million for a second round pick.
Teams would. It's
not every bad team. Not at this time of year. Maybe they'll pay half a season of salary at the deadline, but
No,
not
but like
necessarily at this time of year.
Harrison, this happens like basically
No,
every
for first
offseason.
rounders, not second rounders.
No, for minimum contracts, like yeah, that those guys tend to go for second rounders. Like hell, when I was growing up, they went for conditional second rounders. Like teams would just kind of take them for like a top 59 protected second rounder, you know?
I mean, I guess the Lakers did do that with Damian Jones a couple of years ago. But it's
Yeah.
okay, so you open up a roster spot, but is Tyus Jones sort of fixing this team? Is Gary Trent? I mean, Gary Trent Jr. legitimately, maybe that's the one where he really would have helped. But we also don't know that he wasn't just going to go to Milwaukee anyway, because either way, even if you know Vando's out, he's still going to have a bigger role there for the entire season and sort of be guaranteed a better shot at a better role and opportunity. And there's also the Dame relationship factor there, which is why I never really thought that the Lakers were going to get him, because if he was battling between minimums, it's like, I'm going to go with my friend that's been recruiting me.
So Andre Drummond signed a 2-year, $6.5 million contract. I'm pretty sure that's a 2-year veteran minimum
I believe
contract.
that's the minimum. Yeah.
Yeah. There. Like that at least addresses the
man, the Lakers have you down so bad. You're arguing for Andre Drummond on the minimum again.
I was down with bringing him in last year at the deadline too. The Lakers clearly need somebody with a little bit of bulk to them. Drummond is a lot more self-aware at this point in his career than he was the last time when he was a Laker the last time. Like I would have been fine.
Sort of like it's like adult Jackson Hayes, you know.
I also saw Drummond on Blippi, and to those of you who have kids, you know, put him in a completely different light. Avery was like thrilled to see this behemoth of a man joking around with Blippi, and I was like, yeah, that would have been fun.
You were always too unfair
Drummond.
to the Big Penguin. I stand by all my defenses of him over the years.
I don't think back then. I think my complaints back then were fair. I needed proof that he had calf muscles, and it was really annoying that he got to the Lakers and was promised a starting gig. And I thought that threw things for a bit of a loop, because Marc Gasol was, I thought, a much better fit. Now, Mark wasn't the same player after COVID. So,
okay, then let's flip it back around. If you're getting a Gary Trent Jr. or an Andre Drummond, like, you're probably having to promise them a role on the minimum.
No, because Drummond's going to be the backup in Philly. So,
well, you're having to promise him, the backup spot, and that he's going to play consistently, and that sort of thing. I mean
I'm fine with promising him like that. Like, if I'm like, and by the way, like, this was a funny thing too that I figured out, like, or that like the number one question I had with all of the should the Lakers have promised roles, shouldn't they have promised roles, and all that stuff, and people seem to take them not being willing to promise a starting gig to Klay Thompson, and them not being willing to promise a starting gig to Gary Trent Jr. as meaning that neither of those guys were definitely going to start. That like they were being told, like, no, you're going to come off the bench and you're going to like it. No, like, those guys could have won the starting gig.
Well, but they just want to be promised that,
I know, but like the people who I've had in my mentions back when that was still a topic, I think kind of misread that situation, and that, like, yeah, those guys clearly wanted to never have to fight for that position, and the Lakers wanted JJ Redick to be able to have the flexibility to start whoever he wanted to start, even though, like, he's going to have to start D'Angelo Russell for, but anyway, this is a lot of debating over Andre Drummond or whatever.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, I guess
I still think that there were things that the
Lakers
Lakers could have done. Like, there.
I guess you're probably right, but I'm also not certain that they could have pulled them off, which is sort of also an indictment on the front office and with the situation that they've put themselves in, and sort of, the thin needle that they have to thread to return this team into a contender and have any hope of sort of executing, or at least taking advantage of LeBron and AD's remaining primes, or, LeBron's, I think, out of his prime, but you know what I mean? Like, still, one of the best players in the NBA. Mm-hmm. And they sort of have a tough needle to thread going back years and years because of, these minimum player options, going back to the Russell Westbrook trade, the passing up. Like, we don't have to relitigate every single mistake that they've made, but there's been like a cascading waterfall of things that they've done to put themselves in this position, to the point where it's hard for me to get that worked up about, like, oh, well, if you thought that there was any chance that these guys were going to get hurt, this is why you should have brought in more depth and made more moves. It's like, I'm not certain that they could have realistically gotten any of that stuff done. And so that's why I'm sort of hesitant to blast them for it too hard, because I'm not sure that it was realistic. Like, neither of us know for certain which one Drummond would have picked if he was offered the backup role here versus Philadelphia. Like, does he have fonder memories of LA or, playing in Philly? Probably Philly a little bit, And so I just have a hard time being that upset about it for that reason. Like, I'm just not certain they could have gotten any of those guys. And there's no one on the market today where I'm like, they would help right now. I wish that the Lakers had a roster spot to offer that person.
I kind of feel that way about Markelle Fultz, but yeah, I
Markelle Fultz, you would lose you within 5 games. You would be giving him like the Russ treatment within like 5 games.
No, because I think he's aware that he can't shoot, right? Like, Fultz gets after it defensively, and the Lakers need that kind of athleticism and that kind of like give a bleep on the defensive side of the ball, on the perimeter.
That's what they got Lisan Al Gabe for, provided that he makes his way back from the desert, where we aren't sure where he is right now.
So do you want to try to figure out like what's going on here with the medical staff? Like, do you want to try to figure, because for one thing, it's impossible.
Speculate on medical staff. Let's do it.
Yeah. No, like, for one thing, like, to that point, it's impossible. Like, neither you or I are medical professionals, and thus, like, can't, like, it's one thing for you or me to like question whether or not Darvin should like take his hands out of his pockets while he's coaching to call the occasional timeout.
I really am disappointed. Like, if we still had like, like prime 538, type of stuff, like, we would have gotten like a Chris Herring feature on whether or not coaching with your hands out of your pockets like actually impacts the game, like with like footnotes and like deep studies and all that stuff. I'm just disappointed that we never got, like, Darvin one more year in LA. That would have become mainstream enough that we would have gotten a deep dive from someone.
Yeah, that would be, like the one that like I'm waiting for is the counterpiece to calling timeouts to cut off runs and stuff. Because that for some reason was a conversation whenever I was
criticizing. Well, it's an easy
Darvin
thing for fans to notice that the coach is not doing,
Yeah.
And it's an easy thing to second guess in hindsight if the run continues.
Yeah. Also, though, that like every great coach does it except for like Phil Jackson, and Phil Jackson only wasn't able to, didn't have to do it because he was such a great culture setter.
Smartest culture setter, and he had some of the smartest players ever, on his roster, where like they could sort of generally make the adjustment and figure it out.
Yeah.
And sometimes they wouldn't. Like, there were blowouts in there where it's like they wouldn't make the adjustment, and then that's the lesson is, you got a lot of bad tape to show them the next game.
And on those nights, Phil would be like, it's one of 82.
What people don't remember about Phil is that there were nights where he would just let it get out of hand, and he's like, what do you want me to do? You want me to get up from my chair? Like, Lakers fans, if Phil was coaching last year's team, would have been calling him booster seat or something like that, where like he's just sitting up there, not getting up from his chair,
Yeah, no, like there were also games that Phil would intentionally get himself thrown out. Like, he would just walk to the referee and just be like, hey, get over here. Like, you suck. Boo. Yeah. Get me out of here. Pop also famously does that as well, right?
Pop has a little more like theatrics to it, though. Like, he'll go get his money's worth. Like, Phil would just casually be like, hey, do you want to throw me out, or should I call you a mean name? And whereas Pop would they're actually like having to hold his assistants are having to hold him back as he's like, his face is turning beet red, screaming at the officials.
I tried to get myself thrown out of a game back when I was coaching once. It was against Edison back when they had, I think either Stewie or one of her sisters were on that Edison team. They were killing us.
Yeah,
And
I was gonna say you probably have had very little hope if you were playing against Brianna Stewart or one of her siblings. You know, I
yeah,
assume, or also even if they are not pros, probably very good at basketball. Like,
no, it was like or one of her siblings, because I'm
oh,
pretty
okay,
sure
yeah,
she
that's rough.
and one of her siblings was at in high school at the same time. And
I'm gonna
my
be honest,
my
getting yourself thrown out probably not enough motivation to make up that talent deficit.
well, so like, and we're playing at Edison. The referees were just like, you just couldn't breathe on whichever steward it was playing there, and and I just like, there was this referee who had like a just classic '80s mustache, and after like halftime, I just kept calling him Tom. Come on, Tom. Come on. Come on, 5-0. And like, he was just like kind of looking at me that way. And then like at one point it kind of dawned on him. And he actually, to his credit, like actually like put me kind of in my place. He's like, hey, I know what you're doing. And your punishment is to finish this game because you guys are getting killed. And I'm like, damn it. It was perfect. But anyway, like I like this all started with like, questioning the medical team and how the Lakers handle all of this stuff. So we can't really question, obviously, the medical team and the decisions that are made there, even though like the one
I mean,
kind
we
of
can
like pseudo
question the
complaint.
trend of results over several years,
Yeah, like,
without
well,
very much knowledge into it. We can
yeah,
say
well,
it does seem to usually take guys longer than the timeline that they're sort of given.
a lot longer
And there
is
do
the
seem to be
thing
a
too.
lot of these setbacks.
Yeah. But like, what I was gonna say though is that like, because like I do have some information on how the Lakers are somewhat unique compared to other teams, and we kind of see it. I compared it to um their disinterest in hiring a shooting coach and giving players their own kind of freedom to be able to coach themselves how to shoot. Clearly, really, really working for them in the shooting department. And I think, that kind of approach, like, I don't think that would be unique to just shooting. I think that would extend to other facets of the organization, and has extended into this particular facet of the organization. And that is where I find myself getting kind of frustrated, because like, you have team doctors. This is a potential advantage that doesn't count against your cap if you employ better team doctors than other teams,
Training
um,
staff.
and training staffs. Yeah, all of that stuff. And so this is where I would say, like, maybe don't give so much freedom to all of your roster. I get it with LeBron. It's working fine with LeBron. The
Yeah,
dude is like,
LeBron has the right. LeBron can see whatever doctors he wants. I'm going to go on the record with that right
remember
now.
that German foot
Whatever
doctor?
LeBron has been
Like,
doing to make him
yeah.
last this long, you just keep on doing it, buddy. Stay away from the Lakers medical staff. You do your thing, okay? You and Mike
Yes,
Mancias, you
that's
go
for
over to your
sure.
corner and you do whatever is working for you, okay?
Do you think like the team doctor like looks at LeBron and he just goes like, no?
Yeah. Like, stay away.
Dude,
Bad. No.
Kendrick's knee fell off on
You
your
don't
watch. Why
you
would
don't
I
think
listen to you?
you don't think LeBron was working with Gunner Fitness, trainer to the stars?
That was such a fucking Lakers hire.
I mean,
It's just
Anthony, he trained Sylvester
unbelievable.
Stallone, okay? Like, of course he's ready to train
Train
NBA
Kim
athletes.
Kardashian.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. But
Lakers were
yeah,
never
I
thicker
like,
than during that time. They were ready to battle in the paint. They didn't have these problems with lack of the back pocket. They had all the I cheat model workouts.
so like, I like that. I think that is where I would have a couple notes for how the Lakers kind of handle this. But yeah, I think with, you know, like you said, the results, that opens them up to these kinds of conversations, right? These kinds of podcasts where you and I are sitting here and saying, like, this trend is now so long in the wrong direction, to where anytime anybody gets a hangnail, I'm concerned for their physical well-being for the foreseeable future. Like, how does that get fixed? Like, is that like do they need to kind of rein those personal teams in a little bit and say, all right, we all have to get on the same page here. We all have to figure this out so that like we don't look like complete idiots every single time we announce anybody's potential recovery window.
Yeah, and I think number one, like we should again just add another preface that we're just baselessly speculating, analyzing, all this stuff here. We're just thinking about this as a thought experiment. Like
I.e.,
we
it's
don't,
another podcast.
yeah. So, well, but this we know less than in general. But I think,
Fair.
the thing to me that that says that this is an organizational problem is that the context that I can provide, the information that we actually have, they have gone through multiple PR staffs, like almost entire changeovers in the time that you and I have been covering the team. They've gone through multiple medical and training staffs. Like it feels
Yeah.
like every year they're announcing a new sort of team doctor, team trainer,
Yep.
like that sort of person, just regularly all the time. And so if you're having that much changeover, to me that signals, number one, you're probably not hiring the best and most effective people. Or number two, like you don't really know how to evaluate it. And you're just kind of like, well, this didn't work. Let's hire someone else. And you're just sort of throwing things around. And to me, again, that's an organizational thing that extends up to, like, I think the people making the business and basketball decisions, like maybe even beyond Rob Pelinka to the brain trust entirely, where they're sort of, number one, they don't have that much of a budget for this clearly. Because if you keep losing people, you keep firing people, like you're not going to get the best people. You're clearly not spending to go out and get the best people, or they would be sticking around because they would be doing a good job. And so I think that is the area where I think that you can critique them fairly, is that my guess would be, based on results and based on sort of years and years of covering this team and seeing how often this stuff happens, is that they have a lighter training staff than other teams. They like fewer people involved in it. And it's, I think generally probably, less long tenured expert people that have been around the NBA and had a bunch of success, because otherwise, again, they wouldn't be getting fired every other year. And it's not, to the Lakers' credit, it's not like they haven't tried. Like they brought in Judy Cito, like, a number of years ago, who was someone who had a ton of success with Kobe and worked with him well. Like they obviously had Gary Vitti for a long time, who was someone who was well regarded by players and stuff like that.
Traffic controller and.
Well, yeah, he was the best hotel planner in the biz too. You can't forget about that. Gary Vitti, who my favorite Gary Vitti story is that he did that cameo on Winning Time and then realized how mean the show was being about the Showtime Lakers, and so like didn't come back for any more tapings, but he's still like in the first episode as a member of the front office with an afro, because he couldn't like go back and be like, no, I renounce my rights for you to use this footage. So he's still in it, even though he's like, I denounced this show. I shouldn't have done it. That was my bad.
I knew that the show was in trouble as soon as every Laker like stopped complaining about the show.
Yeah.
Like I knew that, like, for one thing, like the show wasn't as good anymore. And I knew that like things were like, it lost its bite. And once it lost its bite, it just wasn't a very interesting show anymore.
But the other thing with regards to the training staff is like, how many times have you ever heard a rumor over the last several years of a team trying to poach from the Lakers medical and training staffs?
I mean, when was the last time we got that with an assistant coach?
Have a bunch of guys with successful teams having a bunch of guys that stay healthy. The Phoenix Suns for years and years, the Warriors for years and years. I believe the Pelicans right now have someone that's pretty good, which maybe, maybe their reputation has gone down a little bit, considering the Pelicans injury woes, which again shows that some of this stuff comes back to the players, and it's not like, hey, guy gets hurt, it's the training staff's fault automatically. Like I don't want to make that point either, but it's just, how many times have we heard about people trying to poach from the Lakers, just in general, but especially from these training staffs and the medical staffs? Like never.
Yeah, I mean, like I was just going to expand your point to anybody from the Lakers.
Yeah.
Like it just doesn't happen very often. Now, you do see some people who were like previously coaches with the Lakers, then were like fired as part of a coach changeover, right? Like the guy who Brian O'Keefe, who is the coach of the Washington Wizards
just
now.
No.
What is Brian Keefe? Yeah.
Yeah, just Brian Keefe.
I turned him extremely Irish.
Yeah, I don't think he's Irish. I mean, maybe, I don't know.
May the wind be ever at your back, Brian
Yeah.
O'Keefe.
He claimed that job like the Highlander, he just...
I can't believe I did that. But yeah, I think that hits on a very important point here, Harrison. So like, and it kind of also touches on a question that I had in last night's show. Is like, what are the Lakers good at? Like, what is it? What's the strength that the Lakers are showing or have shown over the last few years that other teams are looking to replicate? I think the closest thing to it was the recipe that they've run in the complete opposite direction of, where everybody realized positional strength matters, switchability matters, role players who understand their role, and like the two-way role player concept, and how you can't have guys who are just one-way impact guys. Like that 2020 title team, a lot of that has been replicated around the league. And as that's been going on, the Lakers have been like, no, that was kind of fluky. We're gonna like that we're not gonna do that again. And
Well,
I think
again,
this,
it's the point that you and I've made, time and time again on this show over the last several years. It's like they clearly don't, they're throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. There's no organizational vision of, I have this idea of what I know works. It's just, what can I do and what can I throw that looks like a good idea, but I can also plausibly blame on someone else if it goes wrong.
yeah, I mean, I would, and I have made this argument in the past. I would say that like their core principle, their key core principle is whatever keeps Rob Pelinka employed the longest. Doesn't matter if this is, however, something that ails specifically the Lakers or is something that we're seeing around the league. And I will say, like, to be 100% fair to the Lakers, this is how a lot of these teams are handling players, especially who aren't on veteran minimum contracts, who have like, or who have made decent amounts of money, relative to other NBA players. They all have their own training staffs. They all have their personal doctors that they rely on. They have all of their entire teams, medical teams, whose sole focus is to keep these guys available as frequently as possible. And you see this with the Clippers and Kawhi Leonard. You see this with, like, you could just go down the list of not just superstars but role players whose organization that they play with or play for allows them the freedom to manage their own health situation up until a point. If things aren't going well, eventually the team tends to step in. And that's where I would say, like, maybe the Lakers, it's taking them a little too long to step in. But like, does it matter to you though whether or not this is unique to the Lakers, or the scale is unique to the Lakers, or if this is something that everybody is trying to figure out?
I think this is something that every single team is trying to figure out, the balance between of being seen as like player friendly, and we give you your options, and again, a feather in the Lakers cap is that they have done a pretty good job, I think, for the most part, of making players feel like it's, like, or at least it's a star empowered organization, and that is sort of their primary goal, where stars always feel like they're very included on decisions, and cater to, and they're allowed to sort of do what they want, and and this is something that a lot of teams do. You look at the Suns with like KD, and how they treat him, and how he's sort of allowed to sort of do his thing and hire who he wants and bring his traveling party. The Clippers with Kawhi, like this is the star treatment that guys get. And so it's like with the stars, I understand it, like they're going to get a certain degree of sort of leeway to like pick and choose their stuff or whatever, but like that's not an excuse to not have a strong medical team, and to not have those options available, and to not have a strong training staff. Just because LeBron wants to bring Mike Mancias with him to every single team, that's great. Obviously, let them continue. Again, like I said, let them continue to go do their thing. They're doing a great job, whatever it is they're doing. But that doesn't mean you need to go to like Christian Wood. And I'm not saying that this is necessarily what the Lakers did, but they're like, hey, go find your Mike Mancias. Good luck.
I'm picturing
Like, you
the
should have
Lakers.
someone that you should have a bunch of people in the building that are there. Again, you're the Lakers, you're printing money. You should be outspending every single team on all of this auxiliary stuff, and they run it
Yeah.
like a mom and pop shop, and they don't. And that's sort of the most cogent criticism, I think, in this respect to me, is like, there's no reason that you should not have the best coaching staff, the best training staff, the most fleshed out front office. I know people are probably tired of hearing you make the point, so I'll make it. It's like, imagine if the Lakers treated the front office like the Dodgers do, where they have
Yeah.
like 900 people in every single resource thing, and their analytics department is all staffed out, and they just, again, it doesn't guarantee success, but it probably raises the odds of it, because you have more people trying to solve these problems. Even if you want to continue to have Rob Pelinka as the primary final decider, you still have more information available, and you're getting more data all the time. And, again, you're having more resources available to these players to train. It's like, just because you have a shooting coach, okay, maybe LeBron and AD aren't going to use them. That's fine. What if Max Christie doesn't want to hire his own shooting coach, and he wants to go work with your shooting coach in the gym? What if Maxwell Lewis he's on NBA second round pick money. What if he doesn't necessarily want to hire like the greatest skills trainer, or he doesn't have the ability to go and like grab that person? Like, you should have these people in house where, it's available to them to work with. And, again, the Lakers have had Phil Handy. I'm not saying they've never spent on these sorts of areas, but these auxiliary areas, like, you should be the most fleshed out team in the NBA in this respect. Like, this is something, again, look at the Knicks and how they've been able to turn it around since Dolan sort of backed up and allowed Leon Rose to enter with the Brinks truck and sort of bring in whoever he wants, and, sort of like run it like a
Nico Harris
professional
in Dallas
organization.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You use the shooting coach example, which I just keep coming back to. And like, when you have a team shooting coach, that shooting coach can then work with the personal shooting coach to make sure that the player is working on the right shots, because that team shooting coach is going to have consistent access to the coaches who were designing the offense, where these guys are going to be working on their shots. Like, these things,
Do you
they
think the
aren't
Lakers hired JJ
revolutionary
Redick
idea.
so they could say that he's the shooting coach?
It-
Like, well, who's more qualified to teach shooting than JJ?
I mean, look,
Checkmate, Irwin.
it's how they've done everything else in their organization,
Yeah.
right? Like,
JJ's booking the hotels on Expedia too.
when he says he wants guys grinding things out, it's like grinding out long hours on orbits.com. Like, just like,
the reason
sure.
the reason they're emphasizing players, they want an app to make phone-based deliverables around gamifying player development, is because they don't
it's
want
literally
to do player
Uber
development.
Eats.
They're trying to replace the shooting coach with AI.
And it turns out it's just
They're gonna
another guy whose initials are
They're
AI.
going to accidentally create Skynet. It's going to be actually Lethal Shooter. Like, it's
Yeah. I just, like, I don't know. I said this and I was probably a little too harsh.
We're probably overreading into like September injury updates. Like, I want to keep just saying that and adding that as this but it's, to some, we
This
don't
is
know that
also
the
when
Lakers
we'd
could
be
have
hearing
done.
everything is great though, Harrison. Like,
Yeah,
guys are in the building, and man, you should see how, like, I've already heard that, like, Dalton Connect has like bulked up. Like, I've already heard
15
that
pounds of muscle. Let's go.
Yeah. Like, I've already heard that from some people there at the facility, that like Dalton looks physically like very different now than back when they even drafted him. And I've heard like nothing but great things about Austin Reeves and like what they're doing to make sure that he's ready to like play in the role that JJ Redick has lined up for him. Like, there are good things that are coming out of it.
To get random drug tested when the Lakers post a photo of him like looking swollen in the off season.
Yeah. But like this is normally the time of year where you would be hearing all of the muscle watch stuff, and you'd be hearing that Jarred Vanderbilt has been working on his 3-pointer. But like, instead, what we're hearing is that like merely coming to camp is like some form of like survivor tactic. It's just like, all right, we need to keep these guys freaking upright. Like, this is crazy. It's absolutely nuts that, like, at this time of year when we'd be hearing nothing but fluff pieces about how great training camp and how thrilled the Lakers are that so-and-so is there as early as he is. Like, this is the time of year where like the PR stuff is easy, but instead it's like, well, I mean, did you notice that Vanderbilt wasn't limping at the Sparks game? Like,
Yeah.
that's progress, right?
Great news.
Where do things go? Like, to wrap things up, like are our expectations now at such a low point that like any progress whatsoever is notable? Because I asked that
Yes.
question. Because some guy, I forget his name, but he tweeted out like some personal news. He is now, lead data analyst for the Lakers or whatever. Looked it up, like made sure that wasn't a hoax or anything like that, and retweeted it. And like when I retweeted it, I had questions in my mentions, like, or even in messages asking, "Hey, does that mean like they're definitely investing?" No, it was a question that I answered on the show in a mailbag. It's like, does that mean they're turning the corner and they're definitely investing? It's like, no, other teams, like, that's not news. A single data analyst isn't news to any other team in the league. This is like the fact that we know this one example
In
when every other
2024.
team is like hiring them by the drove.
Yeah.
Like this is where we sit. So like
Droves is probably strong, but I would imagine they're more staffed out than the Lakers. I mean, all those people are
the
way
Lakers need to
overtasked in
hire
their
them
jobs.
by the drove
Yeah.
to catch up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like where do you set your expectations here on them though? Like where do you go here? If you were still like covering the Lakers, the way that you and I used to at Silver Screen, like what would you be looking for to like mark any sort of progress?
I mean, again, it's not like there's a difference between what I would like to see happen and what I actually think is realistic. Like I would like the Lakers to figure out, which team has the best training staff and go offer them, 150% of their salary to come to Los Angeles. Like that's the type of thing the Lakers should be able to do.
Yeah.
And it's not
Instead, it's
something
like the
they've ever
opposite.
prioritized. Yeah. They're
Instead,
like,
it's
no, you
like,
should want to work for the Lakers.
yeah.
That's the way they
I
treat
heard
the assistant coaching staff. Is like, they don't pay that well. They're like, no, I mean, it's a big brand. You get to live in LA. Why would you not want to just come work here?
Yeah, I heard that specifically from a variety of assistant coaches.
It's Lakers exceptionalism. And to some degree, I mean, hey, fair enough. There is a certain brand value that comes with joining the Lakers and stuff like that. And, there is a lifestyle quality that, getting to live in LA, like these things are nice, but it also costs more. And, there's also a lot of other NBA teams with like billionaire owners that are willing to spend, an extra 20K on that salary that makes a real difference in that person's life and, makes them pick that.
Yeah.
That's like these people are not just like they're not just working for exposure. You're not going to get the best people if you're trying to just sort of have them work for exposure.
Yeah. All right, we do have one starred comment before we get you out of here. So that means
I actually had something that we had to get to as well, but we could do the starred comment first.
Starred comment here from Brandon Oming, who writes, why didn't we just sign Drummond or Bamba? And Andre's a big physical presence. Bamba can shoot three / rim protect. Even Mason Plumlee would be a better option. I think Plumlee also got the minimum, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so.
So like there were options on the minimum big board or whatever. And we talked about Drummond. I'm not the biggest Bamba guy.
I don't think the Lakers
really
were going to bring Bamba back.
Yeah, I don't think the Lakers were. They didn't feel he had a Bamba mentality, or like the Bamba mentality was a really, really bad thing.
Yeah, he had Bamba mentality. He did not have Mamba mentality. I think.
All right, you said you had something.
Yeah, I just shared it in our private chat here.
Guthrie.
StreamYard. Yeah, the Lakers hired a G League coach. Are you able to like screen share for the YouTube viewers like a tweet and put it on screen?
Yeah, I do. It's just gonna take me a second, but I'm just gonna like his face.
So because
it's a
Woj in announcing this, so like I'll filibuster for a second.
He does this all the time, by the way. Like I feel like he does this on purpose.
The Lakers are hiring Zach Guthrie as their coach of the franchise's G League affiliate in South Bay. Sources tell ESPN. Guthrie has been an NBA assistant with Washington, Dallas, and Utah. And, it's like, hey, maybe this guy's good. Maybe he's not. I don't know. Like, I have no David Guthrie opinions whatsoever. I maybe have heard his name once, and or once or twice, like the name rings a bell. But
The
Anthony,
people,
like,
for what it's worth, like the people I've spoken to from Utah all sang his praises. They're very impressed by
I did.
Zach.
A lot of Jazz bloggers were saying he did a really good job there too, and sort of
Yeah.
like that. So at the very least, like he, maybe this is a great hire. Like I have no thoughts on the hire, but I do have thoughts on the picture that Adrian Wojnarowski chose to use to announce this hire, because it is objectively the funniest possible photo. Like, the man looks like he was just served with divorce papers after getting out of the shower. Like, I don't understand. Like, there wasn't a single better photo of him to use. His shoulders are slumped. Like, he looks like Jason Segel when Sarah Marshall breaks up with him and forgetting Sarah Marshall. Like,
he looks like he just saw Rent after being told what his salary is. Like, he just saw like the median rent in LA. He's like,
I was joking. I think it looked like they hired him, and then they just, like, some sort of wizard showed him a vision of the future of the tweets that him and his family are going to receive when he doesn't play Bronny enough in the G League.
Bronny from LeBron.
Yeah. LeBron's not live tweeting the South Bay Lakers games. Raj finally gets that exposure he's been looking for,
No, that is great.
We're going to get a LeBron, and we'll put that on the bingo card for next week. LeBron quote tweeting Raj when Raj tweets out like some good Bronny clips from South Bay to sort of like dispel the narratives about him. Like, LeBron's going to quote tweet Raj. It's not, or somebody like
LeBron's going to wind up following Raj by the
it.
end of this year.
Yeah.
No, that's a great
DM him. He's going to be like, look, I appreciate what you're doing for Bronny, but you got to give up the JHS thing.
You know what we should do? Maybe this should be like a new segment for us, or something that like people like at us with whenever they notice it too, because Woj does this all the time. Like, how he's feeling about the news, or how like the person that the news is about
they
would
really
feel
should
about
not
the
have
news.
let Grant start selecting his photos, for
Yeah, I think maybe that is Grant doing it, because the pictures are always hilarious. Like, they are always a perfect representation of how that person feels about the news. And in this case, it's Zach Guthrie going like,
I also
back taxes.
I have to say, the Woj is the GOAT of leading the tweet with the Los Angeles Lakers are, or something like that, where it's like Lakers fans get the notification and it's like, oh my God, you're like out of your seat. They're making a trade. It's time. Here comes Zach LaVine. I can, react or like get mad or get happy or, see what's going on. And that's like, well, they hired a G League head coach.
How soon before Guthrie is asked to be like an assistant coach with the main team?
Maybe year 2. You got to have the career ladder, Anthony, where, you can take on an extra job and just not get paid for it.
If he is like, if he's up with the main team this year at any point, because like I remember, I think I've told this story on the show before, but when I at one point I wanted to be an English teacher, and thus also my entryway to get my foot in the door into teaching was to coach, right? And so I went to the high school coach, who wasn't like the high school coach who I would have had at Esperanza. He was this different guy named Mark Hill. And I told him, I was like, hey, like, are you guys looking for, because I think he was a brand new coach too. And I asked him, I was like, are you guys looking for, coaches, assistant coaches with the freshman team, head coaches, whatever. I'm definitely interested. And so I showed up my first day looking to be the like even like an assistant coach to the freshman team. Like, it was my very first, attempt at coaching that wasn't rec ball for like sixth graders. And by the end of that summer, I was the head JV coach and assistant varsity coach. And I was like all proud about it. And like, this is just so perfectly my dad. I was all proud about it. I was like, dang, do you see how quickly I went up like through those ranks? Like, that's pretty great, right? And my dad's like, yeah, that's not normally the best sign. Like, it normally means that it's a really like thin organization, and like they're just kind of desperate to get talent at like any level that they can. And I was like, oh, okay,
did
cool.
They have
Thanks,
you booking
Dad.
The team buses? Like, did you have to call the district to schedule
Air
those?
flight control, actually. Yeah, no, it was yeah, they had somebody else for buses. I was in charge of flights, and it was really kind of stressful, actually.
Yeah, I can imagine.
That's why.
It's
That's
like
why
being
Beanie had
hired
to
for
wear a
something that
fake
you have.
afro because he
Yeah,
like
yeah.
had he like
Like,
had he
these
not done it.
rates. I'm not going to be able to. We're not going to be able to make the whole season on this budget. It's like, guys, we got to leave Tarek Black at home on this trip. I just.
Who was their coach when they had Tarek Black? Was that Luke?
I think Luke and possibly Byron. He might have been partially overlapped under Byron, but definitely
Maybe.
Luke. Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember like Tarek was like
Oh yeah, because
really
went out with
underutilized.
Byron. He went. So yeah, he would. It wouldn't have been Tarek, but I was trying to think of
Yeah.
like old Lakers role players.
Yeah, I remember Tarek was like really underutilized, and maybe it was because like they just didn't have enough plane tickets for him that they were concerned he couldn't help on the road. So like, why get used to his production at all? Harrison, this has been a lot of fun. It kept me away from the debates for this last hour, so I greatly appreciate that. Xavier Burvine asks, Anthony, quick question: what do you feel about the debate? I feel like
All
this
right, see
went
ya.
well
I'll talk to you later.
between you and me, Harrison. I think this like our debate went well. I think
Yeah.
we had some productive moments. I think we made some important points.
Yeah, we showed an example for how two friends can have a civil spirited discussion about things, and
Yeah.
that's
Except
the energy.
I don't think the two people who are famously debating right now are like friends or friendly.
No, probably not. I would not imagine so.
That is, like I said, though, going to do it here for this episode of the Lakers Lounge podcast. We have, let's see, today's Tuesday. So I have another Contender Series pod coming up on Thursday. And then, maybe we'll do one of the final season preview podcasts now that freaking Jackson Hayes has to help. I might have to do like a Hayes and Gabe Vincent, season preview that like 500 people are going to watch on YouTube. But that's what we're here for. Like, it's commitment to these things. So until then, and until the next time you guys hear from me, I'm Anthony Irwin. That was Harrison Fagan. This has been the Lakers Lounge. Please have a great rest of your day. Make somebody else's. Subscribe, rate, review, and I will talk to you tomorrow.